And this is actually his latest one that we're going to check out from the Fat Electrician, the only top secret Medal of Honor, Hiroshi, Hershey, Miyamura. So again, go check out Fat Electrician, guys. He tells he has a great way of telling stories, so it keeps people interested. So I'm actually kind of excited for this one because this is interesting. I think on Pepperbox it goes by another thing of talking about the Nisei, which is the Japanese unit in World War II. So yeah, let's check this one out. Let's go.
Nisei in World War II, the Japanese Americans that, despite being discriminated against and interned because of their Japanese ancestry, would go off and not only fight for America, but become the most decorated unit in American history. Let's see what some of the Nisei were up to during the Korean War. Today we're talking about Hiroshi Miyamura, aka Hershey, World War II veteran, Korean War veteran, Medal of Honor recipient, and to the best of my knowledge and research, the only man whose Medal of Honor was ever classified as top secret. And we're gonna get into why right after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Element. Okay, look, you know what Element is, I know what Element is. They've been sponsoring like every other video for a year now. It's hydration mix, doesn't have a bunch of bullshit in it. There's no sugar, there's no artificial dyes. It's just salt, magnesium, potassium, some natural flavoring, and a little bit of sweetener. That's it. You can get the sticks if you want to take them anywhere, or they have cans if you like carbonation. Okay, that's it. That's the whole pitch. Do you want not headaches and clear pee? Drink Element. Okay, the end. Contractually speaking, this ad has to be longer, so I have to keep going. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you a story. Once upon a time, my wife complained about having headaches for, I don't know, like 15 years straight. About a month ago, I convinced her to start drinking an Element every single morning, and I haven't heard her bitch about having a headache in the past 3 weeks. It's been fantastic. So if you want to give Element a try, I'll have a link down below. When you use my link, you're gonna get a free sample pack with your order. Now, back to the video.
Hershey. Okay.
Our story begins October 6th, 1925, when Hiroshi Miyamura is born in Gallup, New Mexico. He is one of 7 kids. He's the oldest son. He's got 2 brothers and 4 sisters. His parents had migrated to America from Japan because his father, who was from a very wealthy, upstanding family, decided that he was going to get married for love and not status, and married a woman that was beneath his class, and it caused a huge rift in the family, so they moved to America. They came here with nothing. They worked their asses off, eventually got enough money to start their restaurant. They had 7 kids. They embraced being American, and they raised their kids with the same values. Growing up, Hershey had a pretty normal childhood. The only real thing he ever struggled with was not a lot of people could pronounce his name, Hiroshi Miyamura, so in 6th grade, his teacher, who just legitimately could not bring herself to say the word Hiroshi for some reason, just started calling him Hershey, and the nickname stuck.
I mean, 1920s, 1930s. Makes sense. Like it's weird thinking about nowadays going and being so ingrained with like knowing some Japanese culture and like how you pronounce their names. So it's like me is like that's actually really easy to say. Hiroshi is that's a really easy name to say, but you have to stop and go. Yeah, but in like 1930, how hard would that be? High Hiroshi, Hershey. Your name's Hershey now.
Timothy.
Present.
Thank you.
The other problem he had was he was kind of a runt. He was a small kid. He always wanted to play football, but he was so small the coaches wouldn't even let him play. So he went off and did well in track and boxing. So things are going great. His family migrated here from Japan. They started a business. They worked their asses off. They're raising successful kids. They're achieving the American dream. But then when he's in high school, Japan attacks Pearl Harbor. And then pretty much immediately FDR steps in or wheels in and issues Executive Order 90.
Damn it, Nick. Oh, the man can't stand up for him. God damn it. Oh, I'm a bad person. Oh, Nick's gonna go off, isn't he? He's about to go off.
066.
Execute. Order 66.
Which, if you don't know, is basically the American government steps in and tells all of the Japanese Americans, hey, you're going to have to go live in an internment camp for all of World War II. If you have a job, you got to quit. If you have a business, you have to abandon it, lose your house, lose your entire life, go sit inside of a military internment camp. So it's kind of looking like that's what's going to happen to Hershey and his family. They're going to lose the restaurant. They're going to have to go live in an internment camp. Life is going to suck. But then Gallup, New Mexico had their city council and their mayor write a letter and send it to Congress and the president demanding that they not intern their Japanese citizens because those are Americans, and it actually worked. So despite FDR and his best efforts, Hershey and his family get to go on living a pretty normal life. Buh, you always badmouth FDR. He's one of the greatest presidents in American history. Buh.
That's right. The comment sections don't like him talking bad about FDR. Okay, here comes a Nick rant.
No, he isn't. He's literally the closest thing America's ever had to a dictator, okay? He's the only president to serve more than 2 terms. He served 4 terms and had to die to get removed from office, just like a dictator. In 1933, he forcefully confiscates all of America's gold at $20 an ounce, and then in 1934, after he's confiscated all the gold, they passed the Gold Reserve Act saying that gold is now worth $35 an ounce. He interned hundreds of thousands of Japanese, German, and Italian Americans with no due process. During the Great Depression, he ordered farmers to burn their crops while people were starving so that he could artificially inflate the crop value. Because, you know, that's good for the economy. Who cares if people are starving? And then when the Supreme Court stepped in and said that that was unconstitutional, he turned around and threatened to pack the Supreme Court if they didn't pass his policies. He created Social Security, which, unpopular opinion, is a giant fucking Ponzi scheme.
It is.
He created the NFA because he doesn't like the Second Amendment, and then somehow he gets credited for ending the Great Depression when most economists and historians all unanimously agree that his policies prolonged the Great Depression and it was World War II that pulled us out. So no, I don't like FDR. I have my reasons. Quit interrupting my story.
Wow, dodged a bullet there, huh?
I'm sure if Nick wanted to, he could go on like an hour-long tirade about how bad FDR is. And what you guys don't see is the name behind me is MacArthur, which I think is the only person he hates more than FDR.
Anyways, Hershey goes on, graduates high school, and immediately tries to enlist in the United States military because that's what everybody's doing. He's an American. He wants to go off and fight for his country just like everybody else. So that's what he does. In 1942, he goes off and tries to enlist in the United States military, and they inform him that he is classified as 4C, which means he is an enemy alien and he is not allowed to serve in the United States military. So that kind of sucks, but then, like a year later, he receives a draft notice. What Hershey didn't know is while he was being classified as an enemy alien, the United States Army was working on propping up the 442nd Infantry, which was a segregated unit that was almost exclusively made for the Japanese Americans that had been born in America, also known as the Nisei. I did a whole video on it, but if you haven't seen it, basically these guys would go on to prove not only are they 100% Americans, they're some of the biggest badasses to ever walk the face of the earth because they went on to be one of, if not the most decorated combat units in American history.
Yes, yes, they were.
They could use him. So Hershey officially gets inducted into the United States Army on January 13th, 1944. He goes off, does basic training in Florida. He is then sent to Camp Shelby in Mississippi for advanced infantry training. After that, they're getting ready to go to war. He's kind of excited. They pull him into a room. They interrogate him, trying to make sure, you know, one last check to make sure he's not a spy or a traitor of some kind. During that interrogation, he said, and I quote, "I don't consider myself a Japanese from Japan. I classify myself as an American from New Mexico." Then, as everybody else that he just graduated infantry school with is getting sent off to their units, he and like 5 other dudes get pulled off to the side and are informed that they are all 18 or 17 and you have to be 19 to go overseas. They don't get to go yet. So instead, they send him off to more training. He goes to 13 weeks of heavy weapons training where he gets to become a machine gunner, which is the perfect role for him, okay? Small guy, I know, like the common consensus is you're always picturing the machine gunner as like the big, jacked, corn-fed guy from Nebraska. Almost never is that guy the machine gunner, okay? That's the dude kicking the door. The machine gunner every single time is like the 6'2", 110-pound white guy with the birth control glasses that's constantly ripping cigarettes, or it's the small, nerdy guy.
That's actually kind of true.
every single time. So Hershey goes, graduates heavy weapons school. Now he's 19 years old. They're getting ready to send him over to Europe. And then he goes through his physical and the doctor's like, you have a hernia. And he's like, I don't even know what that is. Didn't know I had one. I'm fine. Send me. And the doctor's like, no, you have to go get it fixed. So he goes, gets his hernia fixed for surgery, takes months to recover. Okay, now he's good. He's ready to go. He gets on the boat. They
Yo, Crack, what's up? You new to this? It's cool. We're just chill, chat when you can, and enjoy the ride. We're just reacting to some Bad Electrician talking about Hiroshi Miyamura.
send him over to Europe. He gets 5 days out from landing in Europe, and the entire ship is informed that Hitler has just surrendered.
He died.
Immediately, the rumor goes around that this ship's going to whip a U-turn and they're going to head off to the Pacific, but that never actually happens. They go into Europe. He then spends a period of time basically doing guard duty at German POW camps. Then he gets orders, pack your shit up, we're sending you to the Pacific. He's like, sweet, okay, starts packing his stuff up, starts getting ready, takes a couple of days, and then they cancel the orders because Japan also just surrendered.
That's great! That's just great!
And that's it. That was his World War.
I mean, Japan kind of surrendered because we dropped the sun on them twice. You know. Again, a necessary evil. As much as people might not like the atomic bombs dropping, it was a necessary evil. We also killed more people from fire bombs in Japan than we did from the nukes, but still doesn't mean it doesn't lessen the impact of them. They were a thing. Like, I get the point. Like, we did some devastation with the two atom bombs, 100%. But if we hadn't, it would have been a ground war, and then the Russians would have invaded, and there would have been even more deaths. And I don't even want to consider how many Japanese civilian deaths there would have been from a ground or from a landing onto mainland Japan, because it would have been monstrous. I don't think Japan would have been a country. Like, there wouldn't be Japanese like I feel like me thinking about this, I don't think there would have been a Japan left. If there had, it would have been severely wounded to the point that they wouldn't have been able to repopulate correctly. So it was a necessary evil. Am I 100% cool with it? No. Am I cool with it ending things and having to deal with 190,000 people dead from that? Better than the firebombs. I'm just saying, that was better than the firebombs. Also, we dropped it on those two because Tokyo was overcast, so they didn't want to go to Tokyo the day that they dropped it on Nagasaki. Because they were the ones that were least touched by firebombs, so they could have more data, which is true. I mean, that's just it gets, when you start digging into it, it's like you're looking at the scales and they're just weirdly balancing out between what the hell Japan did during World War II and what we did to them to end World War II. Kind of like weirdly balances out, where it's like neither was the bad guy, but neither was the good guy. Like, it's weird.
War II. He packs his shit up, he heads back home to America, starts his life. When he gets back home to America, he decides that he wants to stay in the Army Reserve, which is what he does. He also goes off to college, comes back home, he's working as an auto mechanic, meets his wife Terry, they get married in 1949, they start having kids. Everything's going fine. Around the same time, his 3-year Army Reserve contract was about to be up, and he decided that he was going to re-enlist for an additional 3 years without running it by his wife.
Being married, that is the worst thing. Someone who's been married before, this is the worst thing you can ever do. That's a good way of getting yourself 6 feet under. And you're getting away with it.
You what?
So she's obviously not very happy that he didn't run that decision by her first, but you know, what's the big deal? He's been in the Army Reserve the entire time she's known him. It's just some training, a couple weekends a month, some little bit of time in the summer, a little bit of an adventure for him. What's the worst thing that happened? So like 3 months later, the Korean War starts and he
Oh, that just made me think of Jambo. I'm gonna. Jambo's banned from ever saying those words in chat. When he says it in the Discord, I can't ban him because I like playing games with Jambo. But he's not allowed to say that in chat.
immediately gets activated and sent to California. Obviously, Terry, his wife, is upset. He's like, babe, it's not that big of a deal. I have experience. I was in World War II. I've been doing this for years. They're probably sending me to California to just train new recruits. I'll be safe. It'll be fine.
Is that so?
Then his orders get changed. He's still going to California, but only after he goes to Fort Hood, Texas for a 9-week refresher course on infantry tactics. Not looking good, but it's okay. They're probably just, making sure he gets the refresher course so he can go up to California and train all the new recruits. That's probably what's happening. So he goes, finishes the 9-week refresher course. Then they put him on a train headed for California. And wouldn't you know it, the train stops in Gallup, New Mexico. And he goes up to his commanding officer and is like, hey, I live like 3 blocks from this train station. Can I run home and say hi to my wife? And the commanding officer, being cool as shit, is like, yeah, but when you hear the train whistle blow, you better fucking be on this train. So he takes off running, runs home, gets to spend 15 minutes with Terry before he has to run back to the train and is sent off to California. Gets to California, he is then told that he is not training new recruits. He is going to Japan for a little bit of more training, and then his ass is going to Korea to be a machine gunner. And now he's got to tell that to his wife. So he gets attached to the 3rd Infantry, gets shipped off to Japan.
Oh, that is a series of unfortunate events that
He's training with his unit, and while he's there, he meets another machine gun section leader, a sergeant by the name of Joe Anello, and they become best friends. They finish up training, they get shipped off to Korea, and they go straight into combat. First time Hershey sees combat, he's ordered to take his machine gun section up onto a ridge that's overlooking the Yalu River. Once he gets up, they're ordered to dig in and hold that line as long as they possibly can. It's 18 guys, Hershey included, and they are dug in on this ridge overlooking this river, and across the river, he can just see hundreds of enemy tents. This is their whole staging area, and this river is where they got to try to hold this line. That night at midnight, they hear a bunch of bugle calls going off and what he describes as trash can lids being smacked together before hundreds of wet commies just come storming up this ridge trying to get him and his guys. Hershey and his guys just get completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of enemies coming at them. He's only got 18 dudes, including himself, and they are sending hundreds his way. They're able to get some air support. They're able to hold it for a little while, but eventually they get overrun and their own air support starts strafing their position as well, at which point he has to call it and issues a retreat. He never did get to find out why they started strafing his position, whether they thought he was completely overrun, because he definitely didn't call for them to attack his position, but whatever. One thing's for sure, this is a giant clusterfuck. Him and his guys make
yeah, military intelligence now versus Korean War was 1950 something, 50-ish. Yeah, completely different. Also technology, completely different. They probably just kept doing strafing runs. They're like, well, and looked and went, all right, well, by the time you get out here, you're going to need to strafe here. And now, okay, by the time you get back here, by the time you get there, you're going to need to strafe here. So they were probably like planning out strafes, not thinking about, oh, but we have people right here. You're going to strafe right here, but that's where our men are. That's where I'm thinking, because that's what you're looking at. You're looking at a map with limited communication.
clean getaway. From here, they are told to get on a ship and they're being sent to a port at a place called Hungnam in North Korea. Hershey doesn't realize this yet, but him and his guys are being brought in to support the Marines that are fighting at the Chosin Reservoir, which I've also done an entire video on. Okay, super abbreviated version of what's going on. General MacArthur tells the Marines to penetrate way farther north than they should. They get within 40 miles of the Chinese border. The Chinese sends like 200,000 soldiers south to attack the Marines. They get surrounded. They have to fight their way out, and the only way they're going to get out with their lives is if they can make it to the port at Hungnam so they can get evacuated, and Hershey is going there to support that.
I will state this: MacArthur being a fucking retard here. If you haven't checked out, I don't think I've done one. We might actually do it on the Chosen River by Will State. MacArthur was an idiot and pushed our troops like within 100 miles of the border that separates North Korea and China, which at that point China looked at it as America trying to invade China, which China at this point had become a communist country, and they were supporting the North Koreans. They weren't going to like involve themselves at all. But the moment we got within 100 miles of the border, they were like, okay, cool, fuck you. And MacArthur was told not to. MacArthur was told, hey, you need to stop here. You are not allowed to move forward. And if you do, we're going to be in trouble. And he's like, yeah, fuck you. And he moved forward. This is the same man that also fucking abandoned the Philippines when ordered because they'd save his own neck. I have personal deep hatred for MacArthur for reasons. My Filipino blood dislikes him for obvious reasons. And that's a story for a day. I'm still working on some stuff to talk about that story.
That's exactly what happens. Hershey and the 3rd Infantry show up. They set up a perimeter around Hungnam. They get the Marines in there. They get the Marines loaded on ships. They get the civilians loaded on ships. Everybody's crammed in there like sardines. Hershey and his guys board one of the last ships out, and then they blow up the entire city on their way out to deprive the enemy of nice things.
Look at that.
Nice.
From here, they're shipped back down south. They get off the ship. Then they are ordered to go and basically invade North Korea again. And he spends about a month fighting further and further into North Korea. By mid-April 1951, the Chinese and the North Koreans have launched their spring offensive. They're going to throw everything they have at the American lines. And Hershey and his guys are ordered to fall back to the Imjin River. They cross the river, headed back south. Then they're ordered to hold the ridge there with the river as long as they can. Hershey's in charge of a 13-man machine gun squad and is given 4 extra riflemen for a total of 17 guys. He's got his section that he's holding, and his buddy Joe Anello is holding his machine gun section off to the right, and it's just the entire American forces standing in a line with machine guns trying to hold it as long as they can. That's the strategy. So they go there, they get dug in, they build trenches, they build fortifications. Hershey has his guys go down by the river and set up tripwires and flares that'll set off if the enemy starts coming their direction. And then they just wait. And for a couple of days, nothing really happens. They're just up there on this cliff face, hanging out in a trench, freezing their ass off the entire time. But then, around midnight on April 24th, 1951, he hears it again. Bugles, trash can lids, yelling, and he's like, fucking here we go. A couple of minutes after that, the Chinese hit the trip flares, light up the battlefield, and Hershey issues the order to light them up. And within a couple of minutes, his machine gunner looks at Hershey and says, it's too hot here, I'm gonna leave. And Hershey's like, what the fuck? And the dude just leaves. He abandons his post. So Hershey mans the gun himself by himself, which is a 2-man job. He then proceeds to engage this enemy wave by himself with his machine gun until the gun jams because he doesn't have an assistant gunner helping him feed ammo when it's midnight and he can't see shit. He's looking out of this machine gun nest. There's 10 guys left running right at him. He's not going to be able to unjam this gun in time, so he grabs his M1 with his bayonet, leaves the machine gun nest, and engages 10 enemies by himself, and proceeds to kill all 10 of them in close quarters combat with his rifle and bayonet. He then
Badass. I'm sorry. Like, that's badass. Sorry, you're sitting there with a machine gun and it jams and you just grab your rifle, fix bayonet, fuck it, let's go. We ball. And you just take out 10 of them? All right.
And with a lull in the battle, runs to his second machine gun position. When he gets there, the machine gunner's fucking gone, and there's some riflemen there holding the position. He looks at the riflemen and is like, where the fuck is the gunner? And they're like, I don't know.
Where did everybody go? I have no idea!
He later found out that they decided to fall back after a grenade made it into their machine gun nest, but he doesn't know that right now, so he remans the gun and continues engaging the enemy. They continue fighting, we don't know how long, but Hershey describes it as, quote, quite a while, which under these circumstances could have been 5 minutes or it could have been 5 hours. We have no clue. Eventually, Hershey comes to the realization they're about to be completely overrun. They can't stop them all. They're able to penetrate around the perimeter. Eventually, they're going to be completely surrounded any minute. And this is where Hiroshi Miyamura makes the decision that he's going to order all of the rest of his men to retreat, and he's going to hold back the enemy while they do so. And that's exactly what he does. The last time his men saw him, they were making their retreat as they watched Hershey engage wave after wave of enemy soldier.
This scene is from a Netflix show called Medal of Honor, by the way. Just because no one can see behind me. So I'm just letting everyone know.
With his machine gun, his M1 bayonet, and grenades. Not only does
The only question I have is 10 out of 10 bleed out spot? Gotta know. Gotta know.
Hershey hold back the enemy long enough for his men to make a clean getaway. He holds the enemy back for so long that he starts getting his position hit by American artillery because they think he's dead. At this point, Hershey's like, time to fucking go.
Oh,
grabs
shit.
his M1 and bayonet and starts running through the trenches, starts running through the trails, eventually turns a corner and runs face first into a massive silhouette. It's dark, can't really see who it is, doesn't fire, thinking it's obviously an American because this dude's way too big to be a starving communist. He then sees the Chinese communist Winter Soldier hat and then sees that he has a grenade in his hand and immediately lunges forward, stabs him, and then fires. When he fires, he stumbles back and falls flat on his back. He then feels the grenade hit his leg and he kicks it back towards the guy. It blows up. He takes shrapnel to his leg, but he doesn't know that yet. Jumps back up and starts running towards American lines as fast as he can. He's making his way there. He makes it like 500.
I'm sorry, what? Granted, you run in. Okay. Thank God. You're in America. Oh, fuck my life. Stab, pulls trigger, stumble back, and then grenade. Fuck. I'm sorry, that's quick action. You feel it hit your foot and you just kick. Take some shrapnel, but still, you gotta be quick with that. That is great A.
Yards, and he sees an American tank off in the distance, so he starts running towards this tank because obviously that's going to help in this situation. And as he's making it there, he gets a couple of yards away and runs into a barbed wire entanglement in the darkness. He's tangled up in this barbed wire. He's getting all cut up. He's screaming and yelling and waving at this tank, but the tank motor's on. They can't hear him, and they rumble off. In hindsight, he said that was probably a good thing because he was an Asian guy on the wrong side of the barbed wire. They might have just shot him. Regardless, he gets himself out of this barbed wire, doesn't know what to do. The entire battlefield's completely overrun with enemy soldiers. They're everywhere, so he just finds this little gully, lays down, and tries to hide. He's laying there for about an hour. It starts to get light out, and then he keeps laying there. He's hearing footsteps. He's hearing enemy soldiers talking, and then eventually it gets quiet for a little while, and he's like, okay, maybe they moved on. Might have made it through this. And then cutting through the silence, he hears in perfect English, "Get up, you're my prisoner now." So he quits playing dead, he turns around, he looks, it's a Chinese officer that's somehow speaking perfect English, but he follows his commands, he turns over his weapon, and then they start marching him to God knows where. He's definitely feeling his leg wound now, he's limping. They march him back to his old position, and there is like 40 to 50 dead enemies laying on the field where he made his last stand. They keep marching. They go past his original position. There's more dead guys. We would later find out that it was confirmed by Allied forces that had retaken this area, and he was officially credited with killing over 40 enemies, 10 of which was in hand-to-hand combat with M1 Grand and bayonet.
Yeah, I stabbed a man in the heart. I saw that. Brick killed a guy.
They keep going.
That's still getting credited for that many kills is, especially 10 of them being hand to hand, is really that's pretty up there. I mean, granted, let's not compare apples to oranges because his case is different from others, but you have people like Mr. Rogers, which I think had 21 confirmed knife kills. I could be wrong on that one. I know Miss Rogers had confirmed knife kills. I know. Welcome to the neighborhood. Miss Rogers had confirmed knife kills. That's scary. That man taught me to be friendly to people for reasons.
Going past those positions, they keep marching him further and further into enemy territory when they finally link up with another unit and they throw him in with 8 other POWs that are Americans, and everybody's wounded. And in that group of 8 other POWs, wouldn't you know it, one of them is Joe Anello, and he is jacked up. He's been shot in the legs. He's been hit with a grenade. He is not doing good. He can't even walk on his own. Hershey, even though he's also jacked up, starts giving first aid to all the other men the best he can with what little he has. And then after a while, the interpreter, the Chinese guy that for some reason speaks perfect English, comes back up and says, hey, here's the deal. We don't have enough prisoners to send you guys back to an actual POW camp yet, so you're just gonna follow our infantry until
exactly.
we capture more prisoners, and then once we have enough, we'll send you marching back to a POW camp in North Korea. So they do what they're told. It's the only thing they can do. They get up and they start following this enemy infantry battalion as they try to penetrate further into American territory. The problem is Joe Anello, his best friend, can't walk. So Hershey carries him for 10 miles. Obviously, carrying another grown man for 10 miles is a task in that of itself, but doing it with a leg wound you also have is virtually impossible, and as much as Hershey tries, he just can't manage to keep up with the rest of the formation, and then eventually the interpreter comes back and tells him, leave him where he's at or I'm gonna shoot both of you. And before Hershey can even think to decide what he's gonna do in this situation, is he gonna try to fight and save his buddy against a whole infantry battalion? Is he gonna leave him? Is he gonna argue with him and wind up getting both of them shot? And before he can make a decision, Joe looks at Hershey and says, it's fine, leave me. You did everything you could. And Hershey is forced to leave his best friend to die. From here, Hershey is in the rear following this enemy infantry unit as they conduct combat operations for 2 weeks.
And to confirm, he was a Navy sniper. He was one of the people to help form what is the Navy SEALs. What I was reading really quickly, there's nothing about. I know he has confirmed knife kill, but I don't know how many. They don't state. Probably because it's classified, and we can only presume that he killed a few people.
Straight until they gain enough POWs to transfer him to a different unit and have him shipped to a POW camp. And during that 2 weeks, they do not feed him or render any medical aid whatsoever. After that 2 weeks, they finally get enough POWs that they are going to hand them off to a different unit and march them 400 miles further into North Korea, where there will be a POW camp. The officer that they're handed off to also speaks English, and he makes sure that each one of the POWs gets this sack that basically looks like a big tube sock, and inside that sack is rice and ground up barley that they unaffectionately nicknamed bug dust, and the officer informs them that this will be your weekly rations. You will have 1 tube sock of bug dust every week. Here's what you're supposed to do with it. You're supposed to take a big mouthful of bug dust, rinse it down with water, and it'll expand in your stomach and make you feel full. And that's all they have to eat for the next 30 days on their 400-mile forced march through the Korean winter up and down the hilly terrains of North Korea. And that's not
That I'm going to state this. That's worse than the Bataan Death March when it comes down to. Granted, the Bataan Death March was further, but that's still not great. Granted, the Bataan Death March. I'll get into that eventually. I do have a video plan for that because of reasons, but so that's not great. That's it makes you feel full, but you're getting like 110 calories. That's not good.
even the worst part. The worst part is that they're not going to give them any actual fresh water, so they just have to get water from puddles, streams, whatever water they can find along the way. And all Hershey can think about is how he was told ad nauseum, whatever you do not just drink the water in North Korea, because in this part of the world, they use human feces for fertilizer, so you're effectively drinking human shit. You will get dysentery and you will probably die. But Hershey doesn't really have a lot of options, so that's what he does. After a month of forced marching, eating bug dust, they make it to their POW camp, which is basically a small village in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, North Korea. And Hershey and 9 other POWs are assigned to a 9-foot by 10-foot hut where they're going to be living. Nothing in it, dirt floor, just 10 dudes in a 9-foot by 10-foot hut sleeping head to foot, shoulder to shoulder the entire time. Around this time, Hershey and pretty much everybody else has still not received any medical aid, and he becomes very aware that he's not gonna receive any medical aid, so he acquires salt and rubs that into his leg wounds to try to prevent it from getting infected. Luckily, that works, and then they kind of get thrown into their POW life routine, and that routine is to wake up every morning. For breakfast, they get a cup, like a literal 1 measured cup of soy milk for their breakfast, and then they are force marched out to where there's a bunch of trees and forced to cut down trees for firewood. After they cut down enough firewood for the day, they're marched back, and then they have to sit there and listen to propaganda and brainwashing as the Koreans and Chinese guys force them to read communist pamphlets and material, and then force them to sit around in a group like it's an AA meeting and talk about how horrific capitalism is and how bad America is and how this is clearly the better way of life, which is a bold strategy when you have somebody sleeping in a hut with 10 other dudes head to foot, shoulder to shoulder, while you're actively starving them to death, being like, you see how much your way of life fucking sucks back where you had a house and a car and a wife and kids and food? Yeah, this is way better.
The flavor of
Yeah, that's really bad propaganda. I'm just listen, if you're trying to get people on your side, you don't use that. You sit there and go, look, you have nice cots, you need 3 full meals a day, you feel refreshed. See how much better? Yeah, no, they went the stupid route, which all right.
Caesar salad.
Obviously, Hershey and pretty much everybody else just isn't buying it, but they have to sit there and nod and be like, yeah, no, definitely, this is awesome. Also, don't shoot me. And that is his daily life routine for the next 26 months straight. 2 fucking years he goes through this bullshit. And then one day, a bunch of trucks pull up to the POW camp, and they're like, get your ass on the trucks. And they're like, well, this is it. And all he can think about is like World War II, like, you know, Nazi death trains, like they're sending him off to the kill camp, game over. But I mean, really, what are you going to do?
Yeah, get ready to stare at the wall because they don't have aim. Sorry, that's morbid and mean.
You want to get shot here now, or you want to get shot at whatever the fuck they got going on at the other end of this truck? So he gets on the truck. They're on the truck for days and days. And then eventually the trucks drive them to a place called Punjang, also known today as the Freedom Village, which is basically the dividing line between North and South Korea. The Korean War is over, and this is where the Americans and the North Koreans exchange prisoners. They get off the truck, they get handed off to the Americans take them, they get them a shower, scrub the shit out of them, trying to get all the lice and infection and nasty shit off of them. They give them food, medical attention, and then they get all the POWs into a barracks, and for the first time in 2 years, he gets to lay down on a bed. And as everybody's laying on these beds trying to come to grips with reality that, you know, holy shit, I made it, this isn't a dream, I'm actually gonna make it back home to America, an officer walks in and calls Hiroshi Miyamura by name and tells him that the general wants to speak with him. At this point, Hershey's shitting his pants. He's thinking he's in trouble. Whatever happened with his men, whatever happened back on the hill 2 years ago, like, he's gonna get in trouble for it. Now he's gonna go to an American jail. At least it'll be better than a North Korean jail, but you know, this still sucks. He's wearing pajamas and slippers because that's all the army gave him, and he walks into this general's office. Also worth mentioning, he's 5'10". He is my height, and he weighs 90 pounds. He has been so thoroughly starved. So 90 pound, 5'10" Hershey walks into the general.
Dude, a bad wind is going to make him blow away. Holy cow, 90 pounds. Granted, I can't really say much. I was pretty light as a kid, but still. He's my height and would yeah.
General's office in pajamas, thinking he's about to get thrown in jail. The general of the 3rd Infantry Division then stands up, shakes his hand, and congratulates him, telling him that not only was he promoted while he was in a prisoner camp, he's also being awarded the Medal of Honor. Technically, he's already received the Medal of Honor. It's done, it's set in stone, it's been approved, because the last time his men saw him, they told the chain of command that he was engaging overwhelming odds by himself so that they could escape. And when they went back to do the investigation, they found 40 to 50 dead enemies, all credited to Hershey, 10 of which were killed by bayonet. So technically, on paper, Hershey had already been awarded the Medal of Honor.
Technically, he had 11 kills by bayonet. Well, technically, He stabbed that one guy, then shot him, and then kicked the grenade back at him. So, I mean, there's no kill like overkill?
over a year ago, but they never recovered his body, so there was still a small chance that he was alive. So the American government issued the Medal of Honor, but classified it as top secret because they didn't want it to go out to the public, because if the Chinese communists found out that this badass dude named Hershey had killed 50 of their guys by himself, they probably would have killed him in his captivity, so it was classified. Hershey's shocked. I mean, he's happy, but he's shocked. He doesn't feel like he deserves the Medal of Honor. In his own words, he was just doing his duty. He didn't think he did anything special. From here, his family's notified that he survived and he's gonna make it home. He's then rushed back to America on a ship, and it is arranged for him to be the first one to walk down the gangplank of the ship to a crowd of cheering people and his family. He gets formally awarded the Medal of Honor by President Eisenhower. He goes back home to Gallup, New Mexico. They throw a parade. He's a local hero. He finds out that his own town, the same town that was awesome enough to demand the US government not throw his family in an internment camp, also raised over $3,800 in the 1950s to give to him to help start his life
That's a lot of
back
money.
up after being in captivity for over 2 years. And from here, he just gets to go back to a normal life. He applies for a job at the local army depot. They never get back to him, so he takes a job working at an auto parts store in Gallup, New Mexico. And that's it. He gets to live happily ever after. He's back with Terry. His dad's still around. They end up having 3 kids together. He's raising the kids. He's achieved the American dream, the same American dream that he fought for. But then something amazing happens, because 5 years later, 7 years after he had been captured on the battlefield, he's at the auto parts store stocking a shelf, and he turns around and comes eye to eye with Joe Anello. And he turns paper white and just says, "You're dead." And Joe says, "No, I'm not. Thanks to you." And he then tells Hershey that he survived in the wilderness right where Hershey was forced to leave him for 10 days until American forces came back and found him. And he survived. Joe and Hershey then remained best friends for the rest of their lives, and everybody actually got to live happily ever after for once. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch, maybe drink some Echelon. Links for all that's over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm tearing up from that one. That's awesome. That right there is just awesome. I know there's still video left, so we'll watch it, but that's awesome. The fact he was told, "Hey, just leave me here. It's better." And essentially his best friend survived because they came to agreement. Just leave me here. And it just ended up working out better for them. That's so awesome.
The coolest part for me with these videos is that I've done so many now, I'm really starting to see a lot of overlap in them. Like, it's really cool to know so much about the Chosin Reservoir and about the 442nd Infantry Division, and then I learn about somebody incredible like Hiroshi Miyamura, and he just has these cool cameos throughout these major events in histories. Like, he's got a cameo with one of the coolest units in American history, and then he's got a cameo with one of the greatest battles the Marine Corps ever fought, and then he rises and has his moment in history, and I don't know. That's just the cool part to me, the overlap. See you guys later.
I'm glad you actually finally talked about that. We're starting to see overlap with all the stories he's been doing. Oh, well, there's more?
Events are going to happen in your life. You don't know why, and you wonder why it happened that way. But eventually, down the road, you're going to find out why it happened that way. And that's usually for the better. I try to pass on that don't worry about events that you have no control over, because eventually it will work out okay.
You were in person.
Sure.
I was the guy.
No, stop.
Oh, that guy.
Stop. Okay. All right. Anyway, sorry. That went to the
All right, we talked about the Nisei in World War II.
unsubscribed podcast. That everyone was the Fat Electrician. The only top secret Medal of Honor. I'm pretty sure there's another one, but that was probably the more recent one he researched. That was amazing. I was not expecting all of that information. The overlap is scary, and you're gonna start as he digs into more of these. There's probably gonna be a lot of overlap, which is awesome. But at the same time, like you don't get that. You don't get that like overall like crossover and like amazing endings, especially with something like what he went through and all of that. It's I don't know. It's so awesome to hear that. But anyways, everyone, go check out the Fat Electrician. He does amazing work, and he really makes things interesting to listen to about how stories go.